Hello, beautiful listener. I hope you've had a fantastic week. I'm feeling pretty productive myself. As I was starting the weed out process for moving, I came across a book of folk tales from around the world. Up until now, I've been reading mostly European folk tales, with more time given to German tales, thanks to the Brothers Grimm and how popular the stories have been to this day. Today, I want to start to change that. Before I start, I need to say English is my first and practically my only language, so please cut me some slack if I pronounce a word wrong. Let's learn how to pronounce these words in the comment section below. With that out of the way, let's get to this week's story. This week's tale is How Maui Fished Up the Great Island. How Maui Fished Up the Great Island. Now, although Maui had done many great deeds, he was not thought so very much of in his own home. His brothers complained that when he went fishing with them, he caught no fish. Or, if he drew one up, it was a fish that had been taken on a hook belonging to one of them, and that Maui had managed to get tangled on in his own line. And yet, Maui had invented many things his brothers made use of. At first they had spears with smooth heads on them. If they struck a bird, the bird was often able to flutter away, drawing away from the spearhead that had pierced its wing. And if they struck through a fish, the fish was often able to wriggle away. Then Maui put barbs on his spear, and his spearhead held the birds and fish. His brothers copied the spearhead that he had made, and after that they were able to kill and secure more birds and more fish than ever before. He made many things that they copied, and yet his brothers thought him a lazy and shiftless fellow. And they made their mother think the same about him. They were the better fishermen. That was true, indeed. If there was no one but Maui to go fishing, Hina of the Flame, his mother, and Hina of the Sea, his sister, would often go hungry. At last Maui made up his mind to do some wonderful fishing. He might not be able to catch a fine fish that his brothers desired, the Ulua and the Pi-mo-e, but he would take up something from the bottom of the sea that would make his brothers forget that he was the lazy and shiftless one. He had to make many plans, and to go on many adventures before he was ready for this great fishing. First, he had to get a fish hook that was different from any fish hook that had ever been in the world before. In those days, fish hooks were made out of bone. There was nothing else to make fish hooks out of, and Maui would have to get a wonderful bone to form into a hook. He went down into the underworld to get that bone. He went to where his ancestress was. On one side she was dead, and on the other side she was a living woman. From the side of her that was dead, Maui took a bone, her jawbone, and out of this bone he made his fish hook. There was never a fish hook like it in the world before, and it was called Ma-nai-i-ka-lani, made fast to the heavens. He told no one about the wonderful fish hook that he made for himself. He had to get a different bait from any bait that had ever been used in the world before. His mother had sacred birds, the Alae, and he asked her to give him one of them for bait. She gave him one of her birds. Then Maui, with his bait and his hook hidden, and with line that he had made from the strongest olona vines, went down to his brother's canoe. "Here is Maui," they said when they saw him. "Here is Maui, the lazy and shiftless, and we have sworn that we will never let him come again with us in our canoe." They pushed out when they saw him coming. They paddled away, although he begged them to take him with them. He waited on the beach. His brothers came back, and they had to tell him that they caught no fish. Then he begged them to go back to sea again, and to let him go this time in their canoe. They let him in, and they paddled off. "Farther and farther out, my brothers," said Maui. "Out there is when the Ulua and the Pi-mo-e are." They paddled far out. They let down their lines, but they caught no fish. "Where are the Ulua and the Pi-mo-e that you spoke of?" his brothers said to him. Still he told them to go farther and farther out. At last they got tired with paddling, and they wanted to go back. Then Maui put a sail upon the canoe. Farther and farther into the ocean they went. One of the brothers let down a line, and a great fish drew on it. They pulled, but what came out of the depths was a shark. They cut the line and let the shark away. The brothers were very tired now. "Oh, Maui," they said, "as ever thou art lazy and shiftless. Thou hast brought us out all this way, and thou wilt do nothing to help us. Thou hast let down no line in all the sea we have crossed." It was then that Maui let down his line with the magic hook upon it. The hook that was baited with the strangled Alae bird. Down, down went the hook that was named Ma-nai-i-ka-lani. Down through the waters the hook and the bait went. Ka-uni Ho-kahi, Old One Tooth, holds fast to the land at the bottom of the sea, was there. When the sacred bird came near him, he took it in his mouth, and the magic hook that Maui had made held fast in his jaws. Maui felt the pull upon the line. He fastened the line to the canoe, and he bade his brothers paddle their hardest, for now the great fish was caught. He dipped his own paddle into the sea, and he made the canoe dash on. The brothers felt a great weight grow behind the canoe, but still they paddled on and on. Weighty and more weighty became the catch. Harder and harder it became to pull it along. As they struggled on, Maui chanted a magic chant, and the weight came with them. "O island, O great island, O island, O great island, why art thou sulky biting below? Beneath the earth the power is felt, the foam is seen. Come, O thou loved grandchild of Kanaloa." On and on the canoe went, and heavier it grew what was behind them. At last one of the brothers looked back. At what he saw, he screamed out in affright. For there, rising behind them, a whole land was rising up, with mountains upon it. The brother dropped his paddle when he saw what was being fished up. As he dropped his paddle, the line that was fastened to the jaw of old Ka-uni Ho-kahi broke. What Maui fished up would have been a mainland, only that his brother's paddle dropped and the line broke. Then only an island came up out of the water. If more land had come up, all these islands we've known would have been joined in one. There are people who say that his sister, Hina of the Sea, was near at the time of the great fishing. They say she came floating out on a calabash. When Maui let down the magic hook with their mother's sacred bird upon it, Hina of the Sea dived down and put the hook into the mouth of Old One Tooth, and then pulled at the line to let Maui know that the hook was in his jaws. Some people say this, and it may be the truth, but whether or not everyone on every island in the great ocean, from Kahik-mo-e to Hawaiian, know that Maui fished up a great island for men to live on. This was fun. He pulled up the island with a hook made of a jawbone. That's nuts. I would have loved to seen the brothers' faces after that. Pulling up an island you could live on is way more impressive than just catching dinner in my book. What are your thoughts? If you missed last week's tale, it's the video on the left. And if you want to catch up on all the stories so far, feel free to check out the playlist on the right. Until next week, I'm Sen from Kitsune Audio, and there is always something to read.